Hello everyone. My presentation is about the connection between Transformers and the Chinese Civil War. So the premise for the Autobots-Decepticons Civil War is that the Transformers' home planet Cybertron is ruled by this nationalist autocrat called Sentinel Prime or Sentinel Zeta Prime, depending on the iteration, and the ruling functionist party, or the functionist council as it later evolves to. Now, what's the functionist party? Essentially, they're a bunch of zealots that whose doctrine revolves around this concept that the creator god Primus of the Cybertronians has predetermined everyone's job according to their alt mode or what they transform into. And this, the government they maintain is an essentially extreme surveillance state where everyone serves a purpose or has to serve a purpose and or has to have a job, and the surveillance goes to the extreme that everyone's eyes are cameras that live stream footage to the state officials around the clock. This regime is known for some very harsh punishments. Among them is empurrada, which is removing the head and hands for the purpose of humiliating a victim. And this is typically a punishment for dissent or disobeying the functionist doctrine. And then you have product recall, which is rounding up unemployed and therefore useless citizens for elimination. And then you have shadow play. In this context, it's never surgically changing one's mind and personality, and this is considered an extreme punishment for dissidents. One could argue that the product recall is the worst, since it involves possibly killing millions at a time and harvesting their energon and recycling their parts. But what makes shadow play particularly creepy is that how invasive it is to an individual and how important it becomes over the course of this story. So shadow play in Transformers is essentially it's a form of torture where a dissenter is tortured by surgically altering their thoughts and opinions to be more docile towards state policies. And another effect it has is it essentially changes the person's personality by suppressing some critical aspects of this. Like, for example, there's this scene where now Megatron's meaning or purpose in the story goes way beyond being just the villain or the bad guy. So he starts as a miner. He starts writing and publishing these pamphlets about equality against this functionist doctrine or formist function. And he has a poetry hobby. And then he becomes, the mine closed down, so he becomes unemployed, but then he ends up being a popular gladiator. And at some point he does get captured and sent to this re-education in the form of shadow play, but yes, it fails. So what it does, he experiences the terror of what this procedure is, but it doesn't actually manage to change his personality or opinions. And then he does start a violent revolution as the Decepticon leader under the slogan of "You have been deceived." And then he overthrows the fascist government of Zeta Prime. Now, in most iterations, you do have a Decepticon victory in a sense where this Megatron takes over the planet and the Autobots go to exile. However, in this specific comic, it is shown that without Megatron, this Cybertron would become essentially an extreme form of, I wouldn't say it's extreme form of North Korea, but it was turned into a version of North Korea, and it would basically stay that way. Now, in many iterations, Optimus and Megatron start out as friends. Now, in this particular storyline, Optimus quotes Megatron against the Senate, and while in the picture it seems that his half right of his helm appears to look like Megatron's, so they're still in good terms in this context. So what he asks the Senate, in whose interest do you exercise your power? To whom are you accountable? How can we get rid of you? Now, according to the story's scriptwriter James Roberts, Optimus Prime's words are actually quotes by Winston Churchill. Now, in most iterations, the Autobots do end up exiling Cybertron after a Decepticon victory, and if there's an Autobot victory, it typically results in Optimus Prime's death or the start of another Autobot autocracy. So what do we learn from all of this? Now, the moral of the story is, no matter whether a dictator is benevolent or malevolent, it's slippery slope from lofty ideals to a totalitarian regime, and it contains a warning to humanity that achieving biological immortality and technological omnipotence will not stop warfare nor the eternal struggle for resources.